Hi, welcome to this introduction to the new Babelfish UI. We actually don't have a new name for it because, it's too new and it sort of mingles three different services into one, so we'll come up with a good name later. Anyway, let's start with just briefly discussing the Khan Academy string building blocks. Now at the top here you can see a typical Khan Academy string, the answer, and then two new lines, $, 125, a text tag, and then the end of the LaTeX string. So this string is made up of plain text, which is the orange. There's math markup, or KTeX, which is Khan Academy's superset of LaTeX, or maybe URLs. And then, of course, the green stuff, which is the text tags that exist inside of the KTeX. So these are placeholders that actually hold text inside the math markup. And this kind of complicates things a little bit for normal translations. So in Babelfish, we treat these three parts somewhat differently. The plain text, we try to use machine translation or the translation memory to translate. The math markup, we try to not touch as much as we can. So basically, when we do machine translation, we hide the math markup from Google Translate or any other translation service, so that it doesn't even get to touch it, because that's where most of the problems came from when you use the regular machine translation. The text tags then, which are part of the KTeX, are where we either reuse previously approved translations that we can find in different languages translations, or we can also use our translation, machine translation, to suggest other ones. So in Babelfish, this whole process is referred to as the beast as the dangerous animal. And what it does is basically do the machine translation by hiding some parts of the string from the translation service so that it doesn't get to do anything with those, and then does some other post-processing on that string to make it a better string. The other part is the text tags that exist. These are a really important part of most of the Babelfish work. So having a stable, growing database of text tags is really key to having a successful Babelfish implementation. This database is built up as you translate, or you can translate just text tags if you want to. There is something like 12,000 different text tags inside the Khan Academy corpus. Okay, so just briefly on the beast and why it makes a difference. So the beast translation, if we compare here, there are three different strings here. It's the same string, but the top one is the actual source string, so the one you would find the Khan Academy original. The second one is what happens if you just throw that string into Google Translate. So as you can see, it comes out with quite a number of errors. None of them actually have to do much with translating words wrong. It's just that it manages to screw up the markup quite substantially. Even the URL gets screwed up. Now, when we run the same thing through the beast, we get the following result. All those things that were wrong are no longer wrong, and the translation is the same of the words, and actually we would need to make a change because the Swedish grafen på should actually be grafen för. So Google didn't get that right, but that's a very small change to make. So that's the difference in one example. Here's another example. Same kind of concept. When we shoot this string into Google Translate, we get a lot of things that are wrong. And if you wanted to fix all those, it would take you a very long time, and you would just say, I'm never using machine translation again. But if we use beast with this, we actually get this result, a perfect string. There is nothing wrong with that string. It is exactly the way you would want it. Okay, so this brings us, to this bit, which is the new interface. So you'll land on the first page. Well, you'll see this, where you will then choose your language. In this case, I'll choose Swedish. And then we can start by looking at these text tags that we were talking about. The ones we're actually going to be talking about here are not the three first, which are really part of KATC, the Khan Academy Translation Checker, so we can leave those for right now. We're going to be talking about patterns, we're going to be talking about text tags, long strings, and then we might just look briefly at corrections. So the text tags, these, as I just mentioned, are a lot of them in Khan Academy. I've already translated a few thousand of them, so in this case you'll see the count here on the left tells us how many instances there are of this. Lower bound exists 116 times, upper bound exists 116 times, and I can translate these if I want to. So what I would do is simply make the change, like here, multiply across, multiplicera över, that's correct. So if I press OK, it disappears and it's good. MGCL should not be MGCB, but CL, and I can say OK to that as well. And so on, and you can start translating these. These will exist in English when you start out. And then you can also use beast to translate this. So in this case, I'll hit beast. It will then translate it into Swedish, and that's actually quite good. So I could say that was okay. All right, what about the patterns? So the more of these that you do, the more results you will get from the rest of the work that we're going to be going through. So let's go back to the patterns, which are really the big thing that you're going to be using most of. So if you press patterns, that will give you another interface. It looks something like this. Again, I've done quite a lot of these, so when you see here that there are 32 strings, for instance, that's not really giving you the picture that you will probably see when you start using this. You'll see much bigger numbers, a few hundred most likely, and you'll get quite a number of those strings. So the patterns, what are they? Well, basically, this is a way for us to show, if we take this one at the top, solve for formula, so that means it's LaTeX. Then there's 2 new lines, then there's some more LaTeX, then there's an input Perseus stuff, and then there's an image. So that is part of this thing. What we can do is open that up, and we will then see a bunch of different functions that we can do, and we see all the different strings. So you see those strings that were mentioned up there. So the 32 strings. Now the choices that I have here are to start modifying this or translating this string. But I really only have to translate one of the strings, and then we'll use a type of smart translation to do the rest. So it's very similar to the translation portal, but in this case I'll be doing all the strings across Khan Academy, or at least across those files that I've chosen to look at. So let's take another example, and I'll show you exactly how this works. So this one, we'll open that. Mean, standard deviation. So up here is the pattern that we have. This is the suggestion that it's given because it hasn't been translated yet. Now it's not called this in Swedish, so this is not right yet. So I don't want to smart translate using that pattern. And if we look down here, that's exactly what we see, that exact pattern. The first thing it shows us is the text tags that we need to do to be able to get this pattern correctly translated. So there's milliliters, I'm good with that. There's grams, I'm good with that. There's F, that's fine. C is fine. Kilograms is fine. Feet is fine. I'm good with all these. If I want to, I can press OK, but since I haven't modified anything, it doesn't matter because they were already saved. But let's do that anyway to show you how it works. So that one's okay, 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 that one's okay. Those have now been saved to the database and can be reused later. So now we come to the buttons here on the right, which are the interesting ones. I'll choose the first one, and the first thing we want to do is probably use machine translation to translate the string because it's in English, right? So I'll press beast. Right, it's now translated via Google Translate in this case. Medel is correct, almost. Standardavvikelse is the Swedish for standard deviation. So this looks like a good string, except I want to change it to be the mean value, because that sounds a bit better in Swedish in my view. So now I've translated that first string. You now see that you have the 215, the text grams, there's the text tag, and these recur, the numbers are different. So now I'll press Smart Translate to propagate this to all the 32 strings. Pressing that. If you'll see that they've all been updated with that difference. The next thing that you can do, which is not necessarily in this case, is to change decimal points to decimal commas, or change the coordinate commas to a different feature. I think it's semicolon we change to. You can do that on a string by string basis, or you can go up here and you can use decimal comma for all the strings, just the ones in this pattern, not on the whole page, but just the ones in this pattern. That works really well. Using the coordinates, you don't see those that often. We're working on another feature for thousand separators as well. The next thing you can do is, of course, you'd like to upload these because we're done with the string. We've translated it. So we can either upload it, which basically means that we upload it as if somebody had translated it on Crowdin. So it's not approved, it's just translated. We can also proofread it or approve it by pressing the approve button. In this case, it's so simple that I could actually press that. But pressing that 32 times is boring, so therefore we've implemented these two buttons, upload all 32 strings or approve all 32 strings. So in this case, I'm going to use the approve all 32 strings because I feel pretty confident that this is right. As you see down here, I'm actually going to make a change with using the decimal comma. So there's 0.33. I'm going to implement the decimal comma, and you see that changes. And now we're done. So now I'm going to upload. And it's uploaded. And then you just go into a new string. Do the same process. You see the text tags that are involved. You change it first by beasting, or by doing the machine translation, then by doing any changes you need to do to the first string. Then you smart translate, and it will only smart translate the ones that match. If there's something wrong somewhere, it will just get rid of those strings and only do the ones that you can actually do. So maybe you have 30 strings and only 28 are going to be smart translated. It will tell you whatever it does. And then at the end, when you're done, either you can approve or upload them one by one, or you can upload all 30, approve all 30, and there's also the same buttons at the bottom. Upload all 30 strings, approve all 30 strings, in case you want to scroll through and look at them. So that's basically that interface. The next thing we have are these long strings. Long strings these are all, the ones in patterns are all the different strings that exist. Of course, there are only 10 per page at a time. You can then load more as often as you want. The next thing is all those strings that there's only one of. So not 6 or 30 or 150, but just one. We can see those in this long string thing. In this case, we obviously have something that's probably art history, something like that, and it's a really long string. And so now we're looking at the longest strings first, I believe. You can turn it around, but we haven't implemented that fully yet. And I forgot something really important, so we'll go back to the patterns. When you're starting out, right now it's showing me the patterns that I have left through all of Khan Academy, or at least the 2 high priority content. If you want to show only patterns that are relevant for going live with KA, so this is basically early math, arithmetic, and pre-algebra, you can check this box. It will then only show you patterns that have at least one string existing in one of those different files. That means that you will know that all the work you're doing is going directly towards you getting closer to going live. In a later stage, we will add so that you can choose which files you want to work towards as having this priority. But basically, this is a way for you to make sure that you're not translating some multivariate calculus when you really are just trying to go live with early math. So this is a way how we've implemented that right now. Right, back to the long strings. You can do the same thing here with showing only the patterns relevant for KA Live. But you can also say you want to do just physics, for instance, or science for that matter. Maybe there's a specific let's say computer science. You want to work with those. So then you will get just the computer science strings that you need to do. In this case, I've done a few. Well, these are the 1 high priority ones. So these are the ones that we still have to translate. So you can choose which files you want to work in. Again, making sure that you can direct your efforts. The corrections, I'll show very briefly, are a way for you to correct all these small strings. That could, for instance, the commas, if you need to change the decimal points to decimal commas, you can go through them one by one in a quite quick fashion by just clicking. There's a bunch of buttons here that you can fix and upload, fix and approve, or you can do it in a slower process. It's something that you can do in batch later, and we can fix decimal points, we can fix bracket commas outside of math markup, double commas or dots, and literal dollars we can do different things with. But going back, the patterns are the big thing that you probably want to work with. That's where you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck. So thanks a lot, and I'll talk to you later.